Welcome back to English Listen Go. Have you ever said something to a native English speaker and heard them reply, "That's interesting"? You smiled because you thought they liked your idea, but then they changed the subject. They didn't ask a question. They didn't sound excited. And later, you discovered something surprising. They weren't complimenting you at all. The word interesting sounds positive, but in natural English, the dictionary meaning of a word and the speaker's real intention are not always the same thing. Emma discovered this during a Tuesday morning meeting. Her team was discussing ideas for a new client presentation. Emma had spent most of Monday evening preparing a concept she was excited about. When it was her turn, she opened her laptop. "I was thinking we could start the presentation differently. Instead of introducing the company immediately, we could begin with a short story about one of the customers." She explained the idea for several minutes. When she finished, everyone was quiet. Then Marcus leaned back in his chair. "That's interesting." Emma smiled. "Thank you." Marcus nodded slowly. "Yeah." Then he looked down at his notes. Emma waited for him to say something else. He didn't. Daniel moved the meeting forward. "Okay, let's look at the second option." Emma felt satisfied. Marcus had called her idea interesting. She assumed he liked it. After the meeting, Rachel walked with her toward the kitchen. Emma said, "I think Marcus liked the idea." Rachel looked at her. "Which idea?" "The customer story." Rachel hesitated. "I'm not sure I'd say he liked it." Emma stopped. "Why?" "Did you hear what he said?" "Yes." "He said it was interesting." Rachel smiled. "He said, 'That's interesting.'" Emma looked confused. "Isn't that the same thing?" "Not exactly." Rachel repeated the sentence with an enthusiastic voice. "That's interesting. How would that work?" Then she repeated it again more slowly. "That's interesting." Emma immediately heard the difference. The words were identical. The meaning wasn't. So, what did Marcus mean? Probably something closer to, "I'm not sure about that." Emma laughed. Why didn't he just say that? Maybe he didn't want to reject the idea immediately. Maybe he was still thinking about it. Rachel paused. "But notice what happened afterward." "What?" "He didn't ask you anything." Emma thought back to the meeting. Rachel continued. "If he were genuinely interested, he might have said, 'That's interesting. Tell me more.' Or, 'That's interesting. How would we develop that?' Instead, he said it slowly, and then moved on." Emma nodded. "So interesting can mean bad." Rachel shook her head. "Careful. It doesn't mean bad." "Then, how am I supposed to understand it?" "Context." Emma laughed. "Context again." Welcome to Advanced English. Later that morning, Emma found Daniel near the coffee machine. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." If someone says, "That's interesting," how do I know whether they actually think it's interesting? Daniel smiled. "You don't decide from the word alone." He picked up his coffee. "Listen to this. 'That's interesting.' What happened next?" Emma nodded. "That sounds genuinely interested." "Right. Now this." Daniel paused deliberately. "That's interesting." Emma laughed. "That sounds like you don't know what to say." "Exactly." Daniel explained that words such as interesting, different, unusual, and impressive can change dramatically depending on tone and context. Sometimes they are genuine compliments. Sometimes they are neutral observations. And sometimes they give the speaker a safe response when they don't want to say exactly what they're thinking. Emma opened her notebook. "So I need to learn the hidden meanings." Daniel shook his head. "That's the mistake." "What mistake?" "Trying to create another dictionary." Emma looked at him. Daniel continued. "Don't write 'interesting equals negative' because it doesn't. Instead, learn to notice signals." "What signals?" "Tone pauses, facial expression, and most importantly, what comes next." Emma wrote them down. Tone pause. Expression. What comes next? Daniel gave her another example. Imagine you show me a new design, and I say, "That's interesting. I really like the layout. Could we use something similar for the homepage?" Positive. Definitely. Now imagine I look at it for 5 seconds and say, that's interesting. Then I change the subject. Emma smiled. Probably not a compliment. Probably not. That afternoon, Emma started listening differently. Rachel showed Marcus a new advertisement. Marcus looked at it and said, "That's interesting. I like how simple it is." This time, there was no ambiguity. His next sentence supported the positive meaning. Later, Liam showed Daniel a strange color combination for a presentation. Daniel stared at the screen. "Well, that's certainly different." Emma almost laughed. She looked at Daniel's face. His eyebrows were slightly raised. His voice was careful. "And he didn't say that he liked it." Liam asked, "Different good or different bad?" Daniel smiled. "I'm not convinced about the colors." There it was. Different hadn't meant bad, but it had created space for Daniel to express uncertainty more gently. Emma realized that she had been asking the wrong question. She used to ask, "What does this word mean?" Now she was beginning to ask, "What is this person doing with this word?" That was a much more powerful question. Near the end of the day, Marcus approached her desk. "About your idea this morning." Emma looked up. "The customer story." "Yeah." He paused. "I actually think there might be something there. I wasn't sure at first, but I've been thinking about it." Emma smiled. "So when you said, 'That's interesting,'" Marcus laughed. "You noticed that. I'm learning. I meant I wasn't sure yet. Not that you hated it." "No, I just needed time to think." Emma nodded. That conversation taught her something important. Rachel's interpretation had been reasonable, but even context couldn't read another person's mind perfectly. Tone gave clues. Behavior gave clues. But clues were not certainty. Sometimes, "That's interesting," really meant, "I like this." Sometimes it meant, "I'm not sure." Sometimes it meant, "That's unusual." And sometimes, it simply meant exactly what the dictionary said. The goal wasn't to memorize secret translations. The goal was to become sensitive to the signals surrounding the words. Before leaving the office, Emma opened her notebook and wrote one sentence. "Don't translate the word. Interpret the reaction." Then she added, "If the words sound positive, look at what happens next. Does the person ask questions? Do they show curiosity? Do they add specific praise? Do they continue the conversation? Or do they pause, give a vague response, and move on?" Emma closed the notebook. She was beginning to understand something that no vocabulary list had ever taught her. At an advanced level, knowing what a word means is only the beginning. The harder question is understanding what the speaker means by using that word right now. The next morning, Emma decided to test her new listening habit outside the office. She stopped at a small cafe before work and ordered coffee. At the table beside her, two women were talking about a restaurant they had visited the night before. One of them said, "How was the food?" The other woman paused. "It was interesting." Her friend laughed. "That bad?" Emma smiled. There it was again. Nobody had said the food was bad. But the pause, the expression, and the friend's reaction made the meaning clear. A few minutes later, Emma arrived at the office. Rachel was showing Marcus photos from her weekend. She held up one picture. "My brother painted his living room. This color." Marcus looked at the bright purple wall. "Wow. That's certainly a choice." Rachel laughed. "You hate it." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Emma looked up from her desk. "That's another one." Marcus smiled. "Another what?" "A sentence that sounds neutral, but isn't necessarily neutral." Marcus laughed. "You're analyzing everything we say now." "Pretty much." Emma had noticed something important. Native speakers didn't always hide negative opinions. But when they wanted to be polite, humorous, or less confrontational, They sometimes used language that allowed the listener to understand the reaction without hearing a direct criticism. That's certainly a choice. That's different. Interesting. Not bad. Quite something. But Emma also remembered Daniel's warning. These expressions were not secret codes. Not bad. Could genuinely mean something was pretty good. Interesting. Could express real curiosity. Different. Could be positive. Everything depended on the situation. Later that morning, Daniel gave a presentation to the team. When he finished, Emma said, "That was actually really good." Daniel looked at her. Actually. Emma froze. What? You said it was actually really good. Yes. Daniel smiled. Do you know what actually can suggest there? Emma thought. That I expected it to be bad. Exactly. Emma laughed. I didn't mean that. I know. But that's another example of why meaning is bigger than dictionary definitions. Emma shook her head. English is dangerous. Daniel laughed. Human communication is dangerous. Emma corrected herself. Right. You told me that before. During lunch, Emma asked Rachel about another expression. What about good for you? Rachel smiled. That one can be genuine. For example, if you tell me you finally got the job you wanted, and I say, that's amazing. Good for you. That's supportive. And the other meaning. Rachel changed her expression. Suppose someone says, I wake up at 4:30 every morning, because successful people don't sleep late. Then I say, good for you. Emma laughed. That sounds completely different. Exactly. Same words, different social meaning. Emma was beginning to see the pattern clearly. The meaning wasn't hidden inside one special phrase. It came from the relationship between the phrase and everything around it, tone, timing, facial expression, context, and what the speaker did next. That afternoon, Emma joined a meeting with a client. The client presented a new advertising concept. When he finished, he asked, What do you think? Emma didn't love it. Her first instinct was to say, That's interesting, but she stopped herself. She now understood how vague that could sound. Instead, she said, I like the main idea, but I'm not sure the message is clear enough yet. The client nodded. Which part feels unclear? Emma explained. The conversation became productive immediately. After the meeting, Daniel said, That was good. Emma smiled. Actually good. Daniel laughed. Genuinely good. Emma continued walking. I almost said, That's interesting. Why didn't you? Because I realized I was using it to avoid saying what I actually thought. Daniel nodded. And sometimes, that's useful. But not there. Not if the client is asking me for useful feedback. Exactly. Emma realized this lesson wasn't only helping her understand other people, it was changing the way she spoke. Indirect language could protect feelings. It could create space. It could soften disagreement. But clarity sometimes mattered more. Near the end of the day, Marcus showed Emma a new design. What do you think? Emma looked at it. That's interesting. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Interesting good or interesting bad? Emma laughed. Genuinely interesting. I like the layout, but I want to understand why you moved the menu. Marcus smiled. See? That's much clearer. Emma nodded. She had supported the word with specific information. There was no need for Marcus to guess what she meant. On the train home, Emma opened her notebook. She looked at the sentence she had written the day before. Don't translate the word. Interpret the reaction. Underneath, she added, don't memorize hidden meanings. Notice patterns. Then she wrote several questions. What does the tone suggest? Was there a pause? Does the person's expression match the words? What happens next? Do they ask questions? Do they give specific praise? Do they explain their concern? Or do they simply give a vague response and move on? Emma realized that these questions were far more useful than memorizing a list such as, interesting means bad. Different means strange. Good for you means I don't care. Those rules would fail constantly. Real communication was more flexible. Sometimes people meant exactly what they said. Sometimes they softened what they thought. Sometimes they were uncertain. Sometimes they were joking. And sometimes even native speakers misunderstood each other. That was normal. Emma closed her notebook. She no longer wanted a secret dictionary of native English. She wanted something more useful. Awareness. The ability to hear the words while also noticing everything surrounding them. Because at an advanced level, the question is no longer only, what does this sentence mean? Sometimes, the better question is, why did this person choose to say it this way, in this situation, with this tone? And that was the lesson Emma would remember. Words matter. But words are only one part of meaning. The rest lives in the voice, the situation, the relationship, and what happens next.